The Four Absolutes of the Oxford Group. Absolute Love. Part 7. My name is Steve Van Eiderstein, and welcome to The Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. And thank you for joining me for another installment from the chapter Absolute Love from the book, What is the Oxford Group? This is a book that's provided a lot of information, and it was a foundational book for the members of the Oxford Group, and also therefore by extension the people in Alcoholics Anonymous, the first 12-step program. That was an offshoot of the Oxford Group. And now we are reading about the four absolutes, and we've gone through the other three, which was absolute love, absolute honesty, absolute purity, and absolute unselfishness. Absolute love is the last one, and it's proven to be the most expansive for us to go through. So I've really enjoyed going through this chapter. It's given me a lot of good insights, and it's realigned me in a lot of ways, and it's reminded me very deeply as to what I need to make sure my life is centered around, which is absolute love. So let's go ahead and we'll get into the reading for today. It's just another single paragraph. Next week will be the last installment of this chapter, and then we'll move on to something else. And another book that I found very resourceful. Actually, it's going to be something I believe I'm going to be bringing into the discussion, something I'm actively working with. And I think that would be kind of fun to grow right along with you guys and see what you think of it. So, but here we go. This is the second to last episode for Absolute Love. And this is the reading. Again, this is the chapter Absolute Love from the book, What is the Oxford Group? Written by a layman with a pen. And if you have a copy from the 1930s when it was published, we're on page 115. Christ is the natural arbitrator for world problems. If the world accept any other judge, the struggles to which many fine people are giving their lives to better the conditions of mankind will come to nothing. Splendid ideals and great aspirations will become fainter in the memory than those dreams at night which are forgotten in the waking day. Men and women who are now living lives of great example will have given in vain the best that is in them. The love of Christ is love which has intellect and judgment beyond any bounds which we can conceive. It is as applicable today as in those yesterdays that have long since become history. Christ's love is absolute, recognizing the domination of no social system, but only truth and justice. Building up where destruction has proved fruitless, giving real understanding where discussions without Christ influence only end in a deadlock. The Christ love that can be within us and can run our lives for us can run the world. It is a force waiting to be directed upon all that goes to weave this web called civilization. It is the absolute love that can truly entitle us to call every man brother. It is under the influence of this absolute love only that we can all be the world's workers to carry out and complete, in God's good time, the plan He has for this world, a plan which far surpasses any conceived by man. And that is the reading for today. So there's a lot in there. There's some really great guidance. There's some really big ideas, and just some understandings that I think are going to be really good to go through. So let's go ahead and get into it here, right? So the first line, the first sentence here is, Christ is the natural arbitrator for world problems. And we define it later on in the reading, but just to be clear, what they're talking about here and to define Christ is Christ was the personification of absolute love in history. The way he conducted himself, the way he interacted with people, right? He was the personification of absolute love in the world. And this is the only way to truly have a just world. So when they say Christ is the natural arbitrator for world problems, it is a person that is aligned and embodies absolute love is the natural arbitrator for world problems. So when you break it down like that, I mean, of course, right? Who would argue with that point? Who would think that there was someone better to actually take that role, right? To have authority over people, to have a authority over circumstance and decision. Someone from absolute love has to be the motivation for all judgment and discernment. It can come from no other place, is the reality of it. It can come from nowhere else, because anywhere else is selfish. It is only coming from a place of absolute love that someone can be truly objective, that someone can be truly honest and be truly unselfish and altruistic. Anywhere else, it would be for selfish and self-centered reasons. It might be to punish. It might be to take advantage of. It might be to conquer. It might be a plethora of reasons that can motivate decision-making. But to have a true and just system, it would have to come from a place of absolute love, and we'll talk about that later. So that's why Christ would be the natural arbitrator for the world, because he actually has understanding of and genuine concern and best interests in mind for all parties involved and everything good overall. So, and I also want to point out that this first opening line of this paragraph says world problems. So, and because what you might have noticed is this has progressively gotten bigger ideas. We've gone from personal reasonings for embodying absolute love into for our families, to our jobs, to our communities, to societies, to full countries. And now we've grown to the size of world problems, right? So it's important to recognize this because this is the same concept. This is the same idea. This is the same understanding that has been progressing throughout these worlds. It's been progressing throughout these realms, these spheres of influence, right? Is this absolute love needs to be at the center of them, regardless of what the circumstance is, regardless of what's actually happening, or what the situation is. Christ's love needs to be at the center of it. And this also, I also want to say that that progression from personal to family to work to community to state or country and society and then world, that's how we actually need to build ourselves as well. We need to start here. We need to start within us. We need to start with our families, and we need to start practicing absolute love with those who are most immediately affected around us, because that's where we're going to have the most influence. And if we can't practice it with those immediately around us, we won't be able to practice on a grander scale, right? We need to practice absolute love with those closest to us. We don't get to disregard our families, disregard our friends, and then jump to this pedestal of like absolute love is the way to go, or to the community or your society in a larger way, because it's disingenuous. These interactions here, these interactions at home are the way we can actually grow. And if you can't help build a community, how are you going to help build a country? If you can't help build your family, how are you going to help build a community, right? Like, these are the things we need to actually realize. We want to go change the world, but we can't even change ourselves first. And I think that's a misplacement of priorities and a misunderstanding as to where change truly comes from. So this first sentence is pretty loaded. This first sentence has quite a bit of substance to it, even though it's 8 words. Christ is the natural arbitrator for world problems, right? So it's got a lot in it to kick this whole thing off. So let's move on to the next sentence here. It says, if the world accept any other judge, the struggles to which many fine people are giving their lives to better the conditions of mankind will come to nothing. Splendid ideals and great aspirations will become fainter in the memory than those dreams at night, which are forgotten in the waking day. Men and women who are now living lives of great example will have given in vain the best that is in them. This is a warning, and this is a very serious warning, right? Because they're stating here, this can all go away. All the progress, all the goodness, all of the building up of people and society and of civilization and the world can all be destroyed if we do not intentionally and rigorously bring absolute love into everything that we do on every level of being. Then it's very easy to come to the realization and conclusion that all progress can be gone. Because if we don't do it that way, if it's not based in absolute love, if we don't bring our absolute best and we try to the best of our ability, follow these practices and these principles to absolute love and to conduct ourselves in such a way to encourage and grow and to build society, the selfishness that will replace that will inherently destroy itself. Like, we will just chew ourselves up and spit us out, and we'll destroy ourselves. Any building up of a world will just fall to pieces. There will not be more progress if we don't intentionally practice absolute love at all levels of life. And then what? All the sacrifice will be for naught. In the grand scheme of things, I mean, in immediate moments, people's lives will be positively affected. But if the absolute love is not brought into this world in a full and true way, the coming to fruition of that absolute love is a worldwide condition will never happen. We'll just have a good couple moments, and then the suffering will just continue, right? It'll just disappear and be consumed by selfish and self-centered motivations, which will always end in conflict and harm, right? People won't be built up. People will be forgotten about. People will be left behind. People will be destroyed. Because that's what happens when you have selfish and self-centered motives. It's selfishness will always be in constant conflict and collision with other people. Always. And when you realize that, that means there's only one way for us to actually grow, and that's through absolute love. Because without that altruistic heart, that altruistic soul of absolute love, there can be no true loving action and no true peace at that point. There will always just be this tension of people and this warring between, because it's not genuinely being achieved. It's not genuinely being sought either. It's just two selfish, self-centered interests clashing And then the fallout is pain and misery and struggle for the rest. So this warning is something we really need to heed, because absolute love is essential to the progress of the world and furthering of society, right? Absolute love is the key to actually growth in this world. So let's go on to this next line. The love of Christ is love which has intellect and judgment beyond any bounds which we can conceive. It is as applicable today as in those yesterdays that have long since become history. Okay, so I'm so happy they put this in there, because I feel we talked about it a little bit last week, actually, how dismissive people are of this idea of absolute love and its importance and its ability to actually have an effect and its ability to actually impact things, Sorry, I just had to switch the lighting real quick there. Here we go. Okay. Sorry about that. Just changing a couple of things because we keep having some Okay, there we go. We've almost attributed this idea of absolute love to the past, that it will never be something that we can use. It'll never be something that's going to be possible today, right? And last week we talked about how we'll talk about it and we'll discuss it, and then we won't ever do anything with it. We'll just consider it a good idea, and then that's it. We won't actually take actions to implement a lifestyle of absolute love, to implement absolute love in all actions and all capacities that we absolutely can, right? But we need to make sure we're not dismissing this. Absolute love, a lifestyle of absolute love, is just as applicable today as it was in any other days past, right? And it's just as adequate for the problems that we're facing today as it was in any time period in history, right? We like to put ourselves as this falsely placed person above it, some way, like this, that we're too good for it, or it's too simple for us to actually use this concept, right? But the ability for absolute love to guide and direct the decisions we make at any level in the world is still a viable option, and it is still the most productive option. It is still the healthiest option. It is still really the only option for true progress. But people dismiss it as an unrealistic ideal, like we talked about last week. And this might have worked in the time of the Bible or even further past, but it cannot work today. That's what they think. I don't believe that, though. I really don't believe that. I believe it could simplify and actually be much more effective today, because we've complicated things so much. We've tried to, with every fiber of our being, we have tried to complicate everything in this world. We have this arrogance. The society today has this arrogance, this egotism around them that tries to tell us that we are too advanced for such a simple of a concept like absolute love to work, right? That we are too complicated, that there's too many things involved. We've come so far. It's just not relevant today. That's what we tell ourselves. But it's all lies. It's all crap. We do this so we don't feel like it's applicable to practice this. And absolute love is insufficient to be of use today. Because when we go through that justification, which is false, right? Absolute love is absolutely where we need to come from today. But when we try to dismiss it, this lets us justify our own bad behaviors. Because like I've said repeatedly on this podcast, it's either coming from a place of absolute love, Christ's love, righteous love, whatever you want to call it, or the only other option is selfishness and self-centeredness. So if we dismiss absolute love as being a viable option, that means we get to justify and entertain our selfishness and our self-centeredness, and we don't feel like we have to feel guilty about it. We don't feel like we even need to change it at that point, because we've already ruled out absolute love as a possibility, because it's too simple of a concept, which is all just a lie. We just want to facilitate our own bad behavior. That's it. Our own selfishness and self-centeredness, our own greed and gluttony, our own vanity and pride and wrath and self-centered interests and all of these egotistical ideas, these grandiose ideas. And that can only last so long is the reality of it, because eventually the next thing will come up and just destroy it, right? Because that's the nature of selfishness, right? Eventually someone will be just as selfish as you and will match you and take everything from you. That's how this thing goes. Absolute love is not taking. Absolute love is giving. It's the complete opposite. So for us to dismiss it as a possibility in this world, for us to dismiss it as something that we should try to entertain, something that we should make a goal, something that we should be solidified in our souls and in our way of being, is so short-sighted and is so wrong. We really need to make sure we're putting this effort in to grow and to practice absolute love in every way we possibly can, because that's the only way we can really make progress. That's the only way we can build anything true. And because everything else is just so divisive. Everything else is you versus me. It is us versus them. It is this is better than that, and this is there's judgment and condemnation. It's not to build, it's to condemn. And that's not where we need to come from. The next line says, Christ's love is absolute, recognizing the domination of no social system, but only truth and justice, building up where destruction has proved fruitless, and giving real understanding where discussions without Christ influence only end in a deadlock. Now, I don't know about you. Sounds relevant today. Sounds like these are things we need to take into consideration. It sounds like things we need to reorient ourselves to this mindset, because we're seeing the fruits of the other in a lot of ways, in a lot of areas of life, and I don't care what side you're on. This is true from whatever perspective you're taking. Any of them. There's so much in this, that quote, though. This is overall, it's again starting with that forward movement. True forward movement can only come from a place of absolute love, right? And it can build, and it can correct, and it can heal where destruction generally fails. But it points out two really big qualities, principles, and that is that absolute love focuses only on truth and justice. These are big words. These are big concepts. I mean, my understanding of them might even be simplistic and rudimentary, but I do understand that these are the things that need to be at the forefront of what we're doing. There's so many things and so many practices and spiritual practices, regardless of where you come from, that say God is love, and that love is the truth, right? So absolute love is based on recognizing the truth. Absolute love is truth. That is the only way we can actually function, and function in a productive and a productive and a positive way, right? So absolute love is based on truth, which is loving in nature, and then justice, which is also loving in nature, right? So the reality of things and to be just. Now, some people don't like this. This concept of justice can be very skewed, and it can be manipulated, and can be distorted, and it can be twisted to serve a selfish purpose. And I understand that. But true justice is actually a loving action. And it's a loving action for a couple reasons. Because it helps people. Justice coming from a place of absolute love will help set the boundaries of a life and behaviors of an individual. Right? Because absolute love that fuels justice is functioning in the best and healthiest motive, is hoping for the healthiest motivation and outcome for an individual. So coming from a place of absolute love to find to discern judgment from there, or to discern justice from there, would be to provide guidance and consequence, you could even say, to an individual that would best facilitate their personal growth and realignment to the good and to what is absolutely loving. So justice actually helps people see the impact of their actions. Now, this can be perceived in a negative way. Let's say a behavior provides somebody to have certain consequences, right? So it's a realignment. It's saying, hey, you're headed off in the right direction. We want you to be happy and healthy and joyful and live a full and contented life here, right? So these actions have consequences. That's a loving justice, because it's not done to punish. It's not done only for a selfish gratification of causing harm to another person, right? It is done to help facilitate a beneficial circumstance for a person, or a understanding, an awareness of a change in direction. Now, the consequences for somebody doing good, the consequences for someone doing right, justice will show them that you are headed on the right track, that you are actually growing, that you are actually being somebody, or you are taking actions that are helping build, right? It says you will know them by their fruits, right? Is another verse from the Bible. So their actions will have consequences and influence that will show if they are good or not. And that is the truest sense of justice from a place of absolute love. What is the impact and the consequence of the actions you are taking? Are they building? Or are they destroying, right? So, and it's also critical to highlight that it says no social system. So we're not talking about only all these other circumstances that people bring into it, like a race or creed or economic class, political affiliation, whatever practice, whoever you worship, whatever it matters, right? Those are the things that are not... don't matter to the truest sense of judgment, truest sense of justice, right? There is no social system. It's only truth and justice that have any basis or any influence on what's going on and what's happening, right? Which is really refreshing, which is what we are actually... what so many are trying to achieve. That's what people say their goal is. They in other verbiage, right? But they want a true sense of justice. They want a system that is based solely on the good and the right and nothing else. Sounds like a good deal to me. True justice from a place of absolute love is a positive, beneficial, and a building up thing. And also in this line we're talking about here, this sentence is also is this it says where destruction has proved fruitless, right? Again, you will know them by their fruits. So if the actions you're taking, which are destructive, and this could be violence, this could be war, this could be verbal slander, this could whatever it is, it could be a multitude of things that could be destructive, right? And if that does not seem to be proving effective, which 99% of the time it wouldn't be, probably 100% of the time, but I guess I'll leave a margin for error. Absolute love is more powerful than those things. Absolute love is something that can rise above that destruction. Absolute love can heal where violence has failed to bring peace. Absolute love can build a civilization and a society where selfishness and self-centeredness will just destroy it, right? Destruction will continuously fail. It will come with resentment and death, whether it's in reality or figuratively, or in reputation, or whatever it might be, spiritually. It will always have a negative impact. But to function from a place of absolute love and have the truest sense of judgment and truth will always be something to build, something to create, something to make better with. And we have to remember this next line too. The Christ love that can be within us and run our lives for us can run the world. So I talked about this in the beginning, but this is just, it's continuing that thread. This is the same love that can run your intimate, personal, immediate, familial work lives is the same love that when practiced, that when developed, that when pursued, can run the world. It's not something different. It comes from the same principles. It comes with the same ideas. It comes with the same goals. And it comes with the same practices. It's just scaled up in the same way. And it's practiced in the same way. But people are so scared of it. People are so disconnected from it. They think that it can only be practiced in amongst each other, not on this the world stage, not in between countries, not in between world powers. But it's just simply not true. It's the same thing we all carry within us that just needs to be developed, and it needs to be given freely to others in whatever way that looks. It is the same intention and same purpose. It's just on a bigger scale, but it does work. Do not let us delude ourselves into thinking it doesn't. Do not let us think that it will not be effective, like I was talking about earlier. This is actually just the only way. And it seems simplistic to such a world that we've convinced ourselves is extremely complicated, but I think we only do that to hide ourselves from it. Put a barrier between us and the simple truth that absolute love is the only way to actually progress and build. But it is possible. And this brings us to the last part of the reading. It's got a lot to do, or it's got a lot in it, but it's like the summation of this whole chapter almost. It is a force. Remember, we just said the Christ love within us, right? Can run the world. It is a force waiting to be directed upon all that goes to weave this web of civilization. So every aspect of civilization. It is the absolute love that can truly entitle us to call every man brother. It is under the influence of this absolute love only that we can all be the world's workers to carry out and complete in God's good time the plan that he has for this world, a plan which for surpasses any conceived by man. Right there. It is from a place of absolute love that we can actually see each other. It's from a place from absolute love that we can actually consider each other. He says, call each other brother there, right? Actually care about each other in the most true and honest way. It is only from absolute love that we can build and continue to inspire and have this desire to create this civilization, whatever it is, wherever it takes us, right? It is the only way to true progress, because it takes the fight from beside us and takes all the energy that would be previously used for bickering, and it's placed into this ambition, this motivation to be good and to build good into this world. The desire to achieve and become everything you absolutely could be as an individual, as a community, as a country, as a world is the most powerful motivating force you could actually grab onto. It's the most pure and humbling thing you could actually engage in this world. And if everybody did it on an individual level, who knows what could actually be accomplished? Who knows what we would be brought to, right? But I think many struggle with this idea because they don't know what a world would look like when it's built on absolute love. They only know the life and the world that they've only ever known. And they can't imagine a world without the conflict. They can't imagine a world without the competition. They can't imagine societies without these squabbles and these conflicts, right? So when we say build a world on absolute love, and what direction does that take us? Where do we go from here, right? I don't have a guarantee that I'm going to like a world based on absolute love, which is ridiculous when you think about it, but people genuinely shy away from it because of that. We have no conceptual idea of what would happen if absolute love was practiced entirely by all people to be moving towards a productive, unified civilization and society. We have no idea. None. And that's terrifying to some people. It's terrifying to most people. Because if we don't have the selfish runaround that we wrap ourselves up in, then what are we going to do? Where are we going to go, right? But this is why this concept of faith is so important. This is why this concept of faith will drive us and allow us to walk forward. Because when you do what is right and what is true and what is just and what is loving and what is good, the outcome takes care of itself, right? Faith is walking forward in what is right and just and good and loving, regardless of my opinion of it, regardless of my fears of it, right? And I really relate to this idea, actually, because I was somebody at one point in my life that I couldn't imagine living a life without drugs and alcohol in it, without substances in it, without constantly being under the influence of something. I have no desire to live that way. I didn't think it was possible for a guy like me. I thought I was always going to have some sort of chemical in my body to be okay with existing in this world. But through powers outside of my control, I was placed in a position where I was given the opportunity to participate and recover and to be given a design for living that I didn't know would work for a guy like me. And I didn't know what kind of life it would provide me. I was comfortable in my misery. Even though it was terrible, it was comfortable. And I didn't have to face the fear of walking without my blanket of self-centeredness and self-pity that I didn't know how to live without. But people told me and people showed me that you could live a life without these things, and it's better than anything you could ever imagine, right? And it says that at the end of that writing, more God's plan greater than anything we could conceive. That's how it felt for me personally when I started to practice these principles, when I started to live a different way of life. I had no idea where my life would bring me. I had to just walk in a blind faith that this was the right these were the right actions to take, whatever those were at the time, and whatever the outcome is the right outcome. Right? I take the actions, trust the outcome to the God of my understanding. And that was so difficult. But that same concept is what holds back so many today in the world. That fear of not having control or an idea of what it might look like if we did all practice absolute love to the best of our ability, to the complete and most thorough extent. What would the world do? What would the world's purpose be at that time? It's a big question. With difficult answers, with absent answers even, right? Because we don't know what that would do. We don't know what that plan is that God would have us do that. What's the direction? What's the implication? I think about these things. Because if I told you I didn't doubt at some point, if I told you I didn't wrestle with these concepts quite intimately for a long time, and even every once in a while I still do, to be fair. Though I do believe them and I know them to be true, I still will get a moment of doubt. Because I can't. Even with my experience, I have a very difficult time wondering what would happen if people just loved each other, if people just acted from absolute love, if people actually across the world decided to put down all prejudices, put down all preconceived ideas, and to solely function from a place of love and truth and joy and freedom and happiness and justice and all of these beautiful things, to just build together to see what we could accomplish, to let go of the pride and the ego. Now, I know that's part of me thinks people would get bored and go start something up, right? But I thought that about my own life. If I didn't have substances in it, if I didn't have the drama in it that I did, I would just go get bored. That life wouldn't be worth living. But I know from my personal experience that that is not true. I know from my personal experience that when those things could put down, the true essence and goodness and love and grace of a God of my understanding has come into my life and changed it completely. So I know on an individual level that because you don't know what the outcome doesn't mean it's not worth doing. But sometimes I still struggle with viewing that for the entire world. Maybe that's a failing that's got to be a failing of mine, but I work on it. And I trust it, and I walk in faith, and I do the things that I do because I know they are right. And we'll see where we go from there. So, but that's it. That's the end of this reading for today. Powerful reading with a lot of great stuff in it, and I really do appreciate everyone following along with me as we go through this chapter of absolute love and the four absolutes of the Oxford group. It was it's been a fantastic chapter or section of book to read, and I'm looking forward to finishing it up with y'all next week. So thank you so much for all the likes and follows and subscribes and all the views and interactions and everything on all the platforms. It's been really cool to see how much this has grown and how many people this is getting in front of. So I appreciate everyone's encouragement and support. But I'll be back again next week with the last installment of Absolute Love. So until next time, thanks.